All right, good evening, everyone. The time is now, my phone is off, 6:07, and it is February 3rd. And tonight's work session is a joint meeting with our state delegation. I would like to formally welcome Senator Ilana DiMario and State Representative Carol Hagan-McEntee. And State Representative Teresa Tanzi was supposed to join us, but she sends her regrets, and we will pass along all of the information that we share this evening with her and follow up with any questions that we might have. So we've broken this up this evening into 4 separate sections. It is a guideline. It is not something that we have to strictly adhere to. This is very conversational between the town council and our state representatives. So what we want to do is take the opportunity to be able to engage with you guys and see if there's anything that we can do on a local level and what you guys can do on the state level to support each other and support the initiatives for Narragansett. So we've broken it up into legislative updates, local issue updates, state and federal funding, current situation and setbacks, and action taking, what actions that we need to be making on both the state and local level. So if we want to start off, anyone on the town council can engage with any questions, but I guess we can just open up the floor to you two to introduce yourselves to this council and work your way through with whatever updates you're able to provide us.
Good evening, everybody. I'm State Representative Carol Hagan-McEntee. I represent the northern half of Narragansett and part of South Kingstown. What else would you like to know? Should I just jump into this?
Well, maybe just for the council's background, just what committees that you're a part of.
I'm chairwoman of small business. I'm the vice chair of judiciary. I'm a member of the Environment and Natural Resource Committee and a member of the Labor Committee.
Excellent. And maybe, Senator, do you want to introduce yourself first, and then we'll dive right into it.
Great, thank you, and thank you for taking the time to speak with us. So I currently this session am serving on the Finance Committee. I am the Vice Chair of Housing and Municipal Government, so especially for some of the local bills that might be coming up, that's a new committee for me, but I'm very excited to serve on that. And I also serve on the Committee on Environment and Agriculture. In addition, I am the co-chair for the Permanent Joint Legislative Commission on Child Care, and I also currently have the privilege of serving on the Study Commission to investigate the possibility of opening up a medical school at the University of Rhode Island to address our primary care workforce shortage. So those are all the topic areas that I'm focused on this session.
Excellent. Does anyone on the council have any questions before we dive right in? Anything that you'd like them to cover? Excellent. Yep, do you have any questions? They're going to speak and then okay. Yep, that's fine. So we've listed just a few general updates that we're wondering if you're able to share with whatever information you're able to provide us surrounding the topics of short-term rentals, affordable housing, planning and zoning, the funding formula in regards to state aid to our district, and anything else that might be coming down the pipeline that we should be anticipating and preparing for. So the floor is open. You can address however way that you want to go about it, and it's very conversational.
Okay. You want to? I can jump in. Sure, go ahead.
So I can jump in maybe starting with the topic of affordable housing. As you might know, the Senate Committee on Oversight and the Housing and Municipal Government Committee had a joint hearing the other week, specifically to focus a little bit on the response to the homelessness crisis and also to start to look at the current issue of governance with housing currently at the state level in the State Department of Housing. So as you may know, we currently have an acting Secretary of Housing. We have had a number of people in that leadership role since that department was established, and they were tasked with coming up with an organizational plan, so basically a governance plan, because currently our housing dollars flow through a number of different entities and agencies to both spur housing production and also to govern housing policy, affordable housing, and homelessness crisis response. And this organizational plan, the purpose of it was to try to organize that flow of dollars and work to something that would be a little bit more efficient and effective. And so that is an active conversation at the state level, both looking at how that organizational plan and ultimately governance might happen, and also looking at the potential confirmation of the acting secretary of the Department of Housing as the permanent secretary. So those are kind of the first steps. And the way that that relates to affordable housing is it really does have a lot to do with how those dollars might flow into our community. There was an excellent workshop, which I know a number of you were at a few weeks ago, regarding the Affordable Housing Subcommittee and some of the work that's been done there locally in Narragansett and South Kingstown. And there was a lot of discussion about the idea of making sure that we are focused on those ideals of mixed income developments, also looking at siting opportunities, which the town of Narragansett did approve the $3 million bond to be able to spur some of that production. But the connection between what's happening locally and at the state is really keeping an eye on that governance plan and on how additional dollars might be flowing through those different entities. So I would just cue you to take a look at that.
Okay, I'll start with short-term rental regulations. Jim, aren't you on that committee? Are you on Lauren Carson's study commission? You are. So you've got the expert over here. He could probably give me an update on what's going on with that.
They don't say that necessarily here.
No, so when we go up there, it's, we just sit at the table, and there's really no discussion before or after. So whatever is being discussed is right there. And it's mostly us listening to speakers.
Yeah.
So
So you haven't gotten anywhere yet with dwindling it down to like what the issues are and what you can and can't do?
there's been some movement on fire safety, where the fire department has reclassified the short-term rentals and said what they would like to see
Oh,
in there, closer. So in there, under their rules and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But other than that, we haven't, we've heard a lot of testimony and stuff, but we've not broken into any kind of smaller groups or anything like that. So I would expect it'll be through the end of this session.
so when is the end date of that study commission, do you know? Is it coming up this year, or did you kick it all the way to next
I
year?
think it was 1 year, and they extended it for another year.
Oh.
So it's 2 years, which would be the end of this session. And they don't do anything if there's pending litigation.
Litigation, and you just had the case came down saying that your registrations of the local ordinance, James, you probably know about this one, that if you didn't include it in your zoning,
Correct.
they all failed, right? So you have to redraft that, I assume, if you haven't already. Several cities and towns are.
Yeah, so I actually have to recuse myself, I believe, right? I'm a recused person on the short-term rental situation, but as far as I know, that this council is in the process of setting up workshops to come up with a new ordinance.
How to
Or amend the
register.
existing ordinance.
Yeah. And I know South Kingstown's doing the same thing right now. They scrapped theirs, and they're starting fresh. I don't know if they ever adopted it officially, but
Yeah, we adopted it officially.
you did,
But
yeah.
decided to amend it.
I mean, it seems like that's a necessary part of short-term rentals, finding out exactly where they are. So I don't think the state registry isn't as comprehensive as I think the cities and towns are. So I think that's probably a good thing to continue with.
I think it's confusing to people, like landlords and things like that, because they don't really know what the state is gonna come out with. And for us to, like, we're dealing with all these zoning ordinances that got passed and against basically what the state had already passed.
Yep.
And I don't think anybody wants to do that. So it'd be nice to wait to see what the state does and then enact our ordinance or amend our ordinance. But it seems like we're going to do some research now before that.
Well, I will tell you that in my conversations with the speaker, that he and others have at least 11 bills, housing bills coming down. Some of them are just modifications, some of them are changes to the packages that we've passed the last 2 years. So don't panic. And others, one of them is going to be e-permitting, which some of the cities and towns don't do that. And that's something that a lot of people have been asking for, builders,
Do you know what e-permitting is, Donna?
online. It's online.
No, I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
I'm sure there's a little, here's what I would suggest for all of you. If you really feel strongly about any of these bills, the best advice I can give, and I think anyone could give, is get yourselves up there and testify. Don't just send a letter, because that's what happened to the last council. And if you really feel strong, send somebody from the town to go up and argue the case and how it affects Narragansett. It's the only way. And then I think you'll get a fair hearing. To just send letters, it didn't work for the last council, but of course, the situation was different. So that's all I can say about that.
Well, we have a very dynamically available
Yes.
council in different
Good.
schedules and around the state. So one thing, and that's actually later on, was under action taken, was one of the recommendations that you have for us in order to push things through at the state level. And if there's any specific agenda items up there that you want us to testify on, please share them with us, because we could end up showing up at everything and testifying and saying, hey, this is valid for us as well. So
Well, you've got to have somebody keep an eye on it, because
yeah.
like for us, there's thousands of bills up there. Unless it's my bill, I probably am not tracking it.
Okay.
Unless somebody has said to me, this is a bill of interest, or, for either community. So I think that if it's easy enough to track, there's got to be somebody in this town hall that knows how to track on the General Assembly website when these are coming up. We usually only get 48 hours on most bills. That's the best that we can do. Like I found out the town of South Kingstown is working on a homestead enabling legislation, which I have already put in, and I found out today it's being heard tomorrow, so I'm calling crazily and saying, who's coming up? So you got to go up there.
And I will say, if you are monitoring, like however you do at the daily introductions, you're kind of flagging things that might be of concern. There's also the tool of being able to pass a resolution at the town council either in support of or against a certain bill. So, and I would recommend that you look for opportunities to do both. So what are the things that you're seeing be introduced that you're evaluating that could be of a help that you really want to give that extra boost to for the town? And then what are the things that are of concern that reach that level that, you would want to consider doing a resolution opposed, to send that signal that that is something that, that as a council, you're unified about. So that's another tool that you can use as well, both for or against.
Definitely.
Thank you. Just in general, along the lines of not just short-term rental and affordable housing, but all agenda items that you'll be covering over the next legislative term, one common theme that we hear a lot is the identification of terms, like, for example, what is a short-term rental? Are those kinds of definitions things that you could see being addressed in the upcoming legislative term, strengthening the language so that litigation can be tightened up and avoided?
I think that's what the study commission's
Yeah.
going to eventually do. Representative Lauren Carson from Newport is chairing that study commission. But you already have the cottage tax, which, Jim, you're well aware of, which is anyone who rents for less than 30 days has to pay is it 8%? It's 8%, right? 8%. 7+1% tax, as basically that was kind of like a short-term rental, but I think they're looking at shorter than that. They're looking at less than a week, I think. My suggestion was a week, but didn't we have that discussion a while ago?
So our traditional, myself, is usually 7 days.
Well, that was a discussion that I had with many of the legislators, especially some of them from Providence, Pawtucket, and Their concern about the short-term rental, like the weekly rental, if we put the hotel tax on them, which brings it up to what, 13%? Am I right? Okay. That this is going to put families that generally come to Narragansett or anywhere in the state for a summer rental at a disadvantage, and they may not be able to afford it. Because as we know, any kind of tax gets passed on to the consumer, which would most likely happen in this circumstance. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but it just is what it is. So that's been a discussion we've had up there, so that families can be in Rhode Island and come for a week. So I don't know where it's going to go, like I said.
So if they decided to do something like that, they'd end up having to change the definition, like Alex just mentioned.
Yeah.
That definition of, I don't know where it all started, but a short-term rental is less than 30 days. So 30 days or less, that's what defines it, and it comes out of the Landlord-Tenant Act.
That's the cottage tax. But this is, now they're looking at the 13%. That's the next step they're going to do.
Right, but so that everything under 30 could be labeled hotel tax.
The 8%, but the actual hotel tax is 13. Well, oh, okay,
So that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Trying to get more tax. And they're saying that they want to level the playing field with hotels, but I see that as a big stretch, a house with a deck, kids running around the yard playing, soccer and cooking out on a grill is different than a hotel.
I think you're right. I think that there's a distinct difference between someone renting for a week or two in the summer versus somebody going for the weekend.
So we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen.
I would also say with that conversation comes the piece around where that tax revenue would go if it does pass. And there, are a lot of different ideas about that. So there's, the part where there could be the structure where some of it goes to the hospitality association, some of it goes to the municipality. There are proposals out there where that additional tax would go to the general fund instead of back to the municipality. I would encourage you all to track that issue, because I would imagine that if that tax was going to be passed, it would be preferable to have that be directed back to the municipality, at least to help offset some of the infrastructure burden that comes with tourists and, people coming to our area versus back to the general fund. But that might just be a discussion for you guys to watch as well.
Do you foresee anything being written into legislation regarding day limits, minimum days you can rent, or enabling legislation for that?
Well, I think that's exactly what they're looking at, the difference between the 30 days and like 2 nights, I suppose. And, the hotels are the ones who are upset about the fact that the short-term rentals are getting away without this tax. And in some ways it makes sense, because if you are just doing it for a weekend, that is more like a hotel. But myself, I think that we should distinguish between a weekend and a full week. But, I don't make all the rules. I just give my opinion.
Thank you.
And I think that's something we've done here in Narragansett and South Kingstown historically, weekly rentals.
And along the lines of definitions, an issue that Narragansett has been engaged in over the past couple of years is around the idea of more municipal control over regulating houseboats. And so there has been ongoing discussions about that. Rep. Carson has really been leading the discussion about that. Newport is very concerned about this issue. North Kingstown, which is also in my district, is concerned about this issue as well. Narragansett has participated in those discussions and weighed in. But the kind of cleaning up the differing definitions of houseboats as they appear in different parts of the law is the direction that we're going in this year with legislation. So you can watch for that to come up as well, to the extent that Narragansett wants to be involved.
Do we have an issue with houseboats in Narragansett? Does anybody know? Because I haven't heard a thing about it.
I haven't seen many houseboats in my life.
So as far as the hotels versus short-term rentals, I just wanted to address my concern about, we don't have a lot of hotels in
Right.
Narragansett, right? So like, that's the difference. So when a family wants to come down here for 3 nights or whatever it is, 2 nights, 3 nights, 4 nights, whatever it is, like, we don't have the space for that. So short-term rentals come in very handily with that.
True.
And we have a lot of tourist events down here that require housing for people, like weddings and graduations and things of that
definitely.
nature. So like, I just want to make sure that I voice that that's a big concern of mine. I understand how hotels can feel that way, but again, we don't have a lot of hotel space down here.
So you don't want to increase the tax on these short-term rentals?
I'm open to listening to anything,
Yeah.
but I want to make sure that short-term rentals can rent to those days.
And I think they're looking at more than that, like, aren't you looking at a lot more than that, like, about how to limit this stuff?
Fire
In certain areas?
Yeah, we're looking at the whole thing,
Yeah,
so.
The state's going to allow towns to do certain things, but they haven't determined what they're going to allow. You know, that's,
right.
you know.
Okay.
So appreciate, and I know we're limited on time here, so I do want to touch on a few additional topics. And I feel like as we hit the topics, we're going to hit like everything that it bubbles under, because for instance, dredging rolls up under a few of these categories. But I would kick myself if I didn't touch on education and the funding formula and state aid and the concerns that are being brought forth by the governor's latest budget. Could you possibly give us a soundbite as to where the state aid stands in regards to the funding formula? I mean, that's been a big criticism from districts all around the state for years in regards to the funding formula, and are districts really getting the aid that they need from the state? What more can we do to advocate for greater aid from the state, and where that currently stands? I know that's a big question. And if that's a follow-up, that's fine.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, in terms of any specifics, I don't have any specifics to share, because I think pretty typically how that progression happens is, there's a proposal in the governor's budget, usually, at least on the Senate side, there's kind of a working group on what the section of the budget having to do with school funding looks like, and then usually there are some adjustments made. Sometimes it's legislatively, sometimes it's just through the budget. So I would anticipate that those discussions would be happening again. I can share that North Kingstown has already flagged for us their concerns about what the budget allocation looks like for this year. And so I would say that if there are specific, if you can put specific numbers on it. So for example, if for Narragansett was level funded for this year, but that really represents kind of a cut because of the cost of everything have gone up, that's something to probably put in writing in a letter and send to us. If there are specific programs that are in jeopardy, based on the current funding, that's also something that's good to flag. But certainly as those discussions continue, I can keep in touch with you about that. I mean, historically, that is something that I find myself in the position of advocating for all 3 of the towns in my district, because with the current funding formula, Narragansett, New Shoreham, and North Kingstown all are in jeopardy, so, yeah.
Maybe I'll do something similar, and we'll reach out to Dr. Cummings and the chair of the school committee, Tammy McNeese, and together they can put together their concerns for the upcoming legislative session.
I will say that every year a bill goes in to try and redo the education funding formula so that it takes into account different things like transportation that's not included. So that probably will go in again, but we have to remember there's a $330 million budget deficit. If you already saw the governor's budget, you're going to see that he's trying to close minimum security. There was supposed to be a big strike out in front of his fundraiser this week, but I understand they have negotiated that away. So this is why we're here. When we start to see in the budget that you're going to lose money, and Jason knows how this works, but you have to come to us and say, what's the bottom line? What do you absolutely need? Because we are your cheerleaders to get it put back in the pot. And we have to be loud and we have to be tough, because the northern part of the state, Providence, Pawtucket, Central Falls, all the urban core take a lot of the money, especially Providence. But, so we have to be loud and we have to be as aggressive as we can be to get what we need.
I think that's got to be probably the biggest challenge from coming from our district is showing and persuading that need. So
Yes.
thank you for all of the efforts that you guys are doing, because I'm sure it's a thankless effort, but it's really a hard story to sell, I'm sure.
We always get a little bit more than you think.
Oh, thank you.
We work it.
Really appreciate it. Moving on to another hot topic that rolled over from the previous council is this dredging project that's going on, or hopefully will be going on at the mouth of the river. There are concerns that have been shared by residents in regards to federal funding and the pulling back of federal aid on any number of projects. And I know this was one project in particular that we were really hoping to see strong federal aid from. Do you, and along the lines, same from state aid, are there any concerns that you guys have in regards to receiving any aid, federal aid on any ongoing projects in your districts? And what can we do to advocate or persuade to show our need?
Well, I think showing the need is probably the easiest part.
Yeah.
Finding the money in this the federal administration is going to be very difficult. We ran into the same problem with this president the last time. A lot of the money dried up for environmental issues such as dredging. So I really can't anticipate, but I'm going to guess there's not going to be much there. But we can work the federal delegation to see what we can get from them. I know that you all have a good relationship with Senator Reid, Senator Whitehouse, Representative Congressman Magaziner, so we just got to see what we can do. But this first dredge that we're going to do, that didn't, my understanding was we weren't requiring assistance on that one, but I could be very wrong.
No, that's correct. That was the plan. The plan was to do that to show a hand of
Show
good
good
faith.
faith.
Yes, I think proceed with that. And if we just start with that, who knows where we could land,
Our concern is, of course, getting the ball rolling, only for it to not go anywhere, and then it just builds up the cost over time. So really hoping that there are other aids, communities, federal funds in the future. Like, this is going to take a group effort, a community
absolutely.
effort to figure out where to pay for this project.
And I know that you are a champion of Narrow River, so.
I'd love to see it done,
and you-
honestly.
and you
Since
should
the day I
know that
walked into the State
this-
House, I've been arguing, we've been fighting for this.
This council is on board with you 100%. So anything that we can do to help with that.
Thanks, Jason.
Can I just ask, what is the timeline for that first dredge?
They're shooting for October of.
This fall, okay,
this
that's what I
fall.
thought. Thank you.
So in addition to well, actually, are there any other environmental initiatives that we can do to support you guys for anything that maybe we haven't thought of, since you're sitting on, both of you are sitting on environmental committees yourselves? Is there anything that other districts around the state that they're doing that you could recommend to us? If that's a follow-up question for later on, that's perfectly fine.
I'm not really sure, we got appointed to the committees on Thursday.
Oh,
So
brand new, all right.
I really haven't seen what's coming down the pike yet.
Okay.
I probably will hit the ground running tomorrow with, I saw today some of the bills that went in, and as far as environment, I'd have to take a good look. But I anticipate some of the bills from last time, issues around clean water, drinking water, issues around water runoff, the PFAS and the firemen's uniforms. That's something we have to address. But that requires money, and I don't know where they're getting it, but I mean, it's too many firefighters are coming down with cancer because of what their outfits are made of, besides, I suppose, besides the smoke inhalation and whatever else. But that material has been determined to be carcinogenic. So those are things that we've been listening to for years. We're looking into how to reduce plastics in the environment through a bottle bill, but now it's turned into recycling almost everything, so glass, aluminum, and plastic. But plastic has been shown to be a real problem for the ocean and the fish and the turtles and whatever else is out there, that you open them up and they're loaded with plastic. So it's just not, and there's microplastics all over the bottom of the bay, but you don't want me to bore you with all of this.
No,
so.
this is great. Thank you. We could go all night, honestly, talking about just the
Yeah.
environment.
I would also just add, kind of looking more locally, I did have the opportunity recently to meet with the Narrow River Preservation Association, and so just a couple of things from my conversation with them along these lines. One is that I believe that they have identified 2 additional spots in Narragansett where there need to be what are called best management practice areas, so where like storm runoff from the roads are at risk of just washing right into the Narrow River. And so there's one in Metatuxet that's been implemented, and there's also one on like Circuit Drive in the next neighborhood over. But on the northern end of town, they're still looking at 2 areas that are in need of that improvement, because when there's a big storm and everything washes down, that's when you get the bacteria growth and all the stuff that's in the river that shouldn't be, that inhibits swimming and all that other stuff. So that, I believe, is still kind of on their to-do list to be working with the town to implement. And I was speaking with Michelle Kershaw before the meeting started, that I know that they've been working with her around being able to get some town support for some of their storage needs for some of the different activities and things like that that they do. And so I guess that's proceeding, so I just wanted to flag that for you guys. But they really, provide a pretty invaluable resource when it comes to preserving and protecting Narrow River. So I just wanted to flag those 2 things that will be probably coming to your attention soon.
Thank you. Oh, you have a question? Oh. I did have a few additional topics, but if you have any questions along the lines of environment or anything. Okay. There was, where are we on this? Another issue that was brought to our attention, shared by a representative from the ACLU, is the topic of immigration and protecting of our residents and the concern about pulling kids out of our public schools. Did you have any specific question that you wanted to ask along those lines?
So I have asked the solicitor to start working on something, but it's my understanding that the state is working on something as well.
Well, do you have a policy here with your police department on what they're going to do if they send ICE down here? ICE has been seen around the state.
Yeah.
So I would talk to your chief, Rikas, and figure out what your policy is. I believe South Kingstown is not going to will not assist unless it's a criminal pursuit.
Well, I know SK in 2017 did a resolution to say that, correct?
Well, South Kingstown did do a sanctuary town, but I don't know how that's going to work anymore. But I do believe that their policy is that the police won't assist unless it's a criminal activity or somebody, if there's a warrant out for somebody. These guys might know more, right, Jim? You may know.
The town, the police department has a policy on how they deal with ICE. If someone is, it happened recently where 2 Chinese nationals were involved in a national or international financial scam in town, and these individuals happened to be in the country illegally, but committing a crime in the town of Narragansett. The feds had a long-term investigation going on, and they took over the case. So they were just they were arrested by them. They wanted them. They were looking for them. But in normal circumstances, the police department, if they come across someone in the course of their duties, if they have not committed a crime, there is no notification made to ICE. If they just come across someone, on a routine traffic stop, that's not the policy. But if they have committed a crime, or the person of interest in a crime, and there's a detainer or a warrant for them, they notify the federal authorities. They do not go out to enforce immigration law in the town. They don't do that. But if someone commits a crime and they happen to be in this country illegally after committing a crime in town, we do notify ICE. And it's up to them whether they choose to issue a detainer or a warrant to hold the person. But we do not, we don't go looking for people who are undocumented here. Just, again, just in case, if they commit a crime, we notify the federal authorities to see if they want to put a detainer on them. But we don't put it on them.
Can I just ask about the schools again? Basically, can the state do some type of a blanket policy that involves the schools within Narragansett, or does it have to be individual? The last time this all
About
happened.
immigration, are you talking
Yeah,
about?
about
Yeah,
immigration, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, about the immigration. I mean, I know the last time this happened, I worked on the immigration committee that tried to, that helped get South Kingstown
Yeah.
to do that. And we had talked to the commissioner at that point to say if there was some way that we could just do something so that all the schools felt safe within the state of Connecticut. I state of Rhode Island, sorry. I apologize for that. It's been a long time since I've been there. And I was just wondering if there was anything coming down from the state or anything that the state can do to help do a blanket type of a thing, or if we have to do it individually.
Well, Donna, I mean, the feds supersede the state law, so that's where we run into trouble. I have heard that they're allowing ICE in some of the schools and the churches, all the places that they weren't allowed in before, they are now going to. So I haven't seen that happen around here yet, but I think the best policy is what the police are going to do, unless it's a criminal activity or a warrant, that they're not going to assist. I think that's the best way. I don't think we can pass a law statewide that would have any teeth if the federal government's saying they're coming in and where ICE is here to pick up whoever for whatever reason. I don't know how we can protect anybody.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, the kids in the schools. But
I know.
No, I understand that. No, I understand what you're saying. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look up the journal, but I thought today they had a really good breakdown of what the laws were and stuff.
That's what I was just going to say. I think that the dissemination of that information is also really important around understanding, when a warrant would need to be asked for. And, so for the adults in the schools to also understand what they are obligated to do versus not
Yeah.
obligated to do under some of the federal directives that are happening. So I think that was in the journal. I do believe that the ACLU is also distributing some of that information and is willing to talk to various school departments and things like that to make sure that the people who might be put in that position kind of know what it is that they're obligated to do and not.
And Attorney General Nerona has issued information that you can't enter a school without a search warrant for a criminal activity, and a child who's a son or daughter of a potential undocumented person, that person's not committing a crime, that child, so they're not getting in that school. And that's not going to happen in Narragansett either.
So I want to be mindful of our time and the transition that, we have to clean up for the next regular meeting. So I do want to make sure that we cover two more topics before our final questions. One is we have a very thriving senior population in Narragansett, and wondered if you had any recommendations on ways in which we can better support the seniors living in our town, any initiatives that you've seen working elsewhere around the state, or any ways in which we can improve even public services like transportation to and from the grocery store or to, anywhere.
Well, they always say there's not enough transportation down here. And Alana and I have worked with RIPTA to try and cure that to some degree. Do you want to speak about the program for the blind? Yeah.
So this is somewhat related, but Rep. McEntee and I have been working with a number of advocates who are eligible for the paratransit program because of a disability to be able to pilot a statewide paratransit program, because before you had to live within a very short distance of a fixed route to be able to access the paratransit program through RIPTA, which is door-to-door service. Since last January, there's been a pilot program ongoing statewide that allows people who are eligible for the paratransit system to access that door-to-door transportation. So people have been using it. We have a person in Narragansett who's a huge advocate for this program, who's a teacher in another town. She's a public school teacher. She's been able to get to work every day instead of relying on rides from other people. And the stories of people who are able to access educational opportunities, community opportunities, and have some more independence are really compelling. And so now we're looking to make that program permanent. The side effect of that has also been, or kind of, I should say, working in tandem with that has been the Flex on Demand service from RIPTA that's been piloted in our area, and that they're looking to figure out how to integrate with this door-to-door statewide paratransit. So that's going to be an active discussion about being able to budget for that, because it turns out that it's actually not that expensive to make that happen. There's probably some efficiencies that can be worked out, but the idea is that ultimately it would really be a huge boost to public transportation for everybody to access in our area, which is underserved by transportation. By public transit.
Is that with the Lyft and the Uber and all that?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
and part of that program is that they can use Lyft, Uber for the same cost that you would take the bus for, and RIPTA is going to reimburse Lyft and Uber, but this is a trial program still, right? It's still a pilot, so but everybody loves it,
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. We do have a few final questions in regards to actions that we can be taking to support each other's initiatives. And the first is, yeah, you can ask a question before I go on.
Before we move on to the final questions, question 4 was passed this year, and in question 4, there's $5 million to parks and recreations and playgrounds in there. I am a huge proponent for playgrounds, if we haven't listened to me. So
Where do you want it, Jason?
I want them everywhere. My big vision is for Cristofaro to be like a huge, nice,
idea.
beautiful playground for the North End.
Yeah.
I know it has phase 1 coming through, but there's phase 2 and phase 3, and getting any portion of that money would help tremendously. So just throwing that out there. Okay.
Well, I think the staff knows how to fill that application out, right? Mr. Town Manager? Look for those grants.
So along the lines, we're a brand new council here, and we're looking for any opportunities to better engage with the state. And I think we have an amazing delegation in you three who represent this town beautifully. So are there any ways in which, in addition to what you've already shared with us, any ways that we can better show our support for you guys, for any initiatives that you're doing up there, or anything that we can do to challenge initiatives up there? What we're really looking for is, I think we have amazing seats at the table in U3, but are there any additional seats that we could be sitting on, a seat at the table, a committee that we could be sitting on, an issue that we could be championing? I think that's a word, on our level, to support anything you guys are working on, or, are there any ways that we can help you?
Well, there is the study commission that Representative Sam Mazzanaro has about oceans and beaches and erosion. I don't know how many meetings they've had. I think they've had a couple anyway.
Is there any openings on it?
No, I don't think there's any openings. It would have been nice if we could have gotten one of those. The committee already started. And at some point, I probably will go to that and testify, and we should probably do a little Narragansett, here's how it's affecting us, because we don't want to be left out. And I've been squawking about Narragansett Beach and the river for a while now. So we want to make sure that they understand that Narragansett Beach took a big hit this past year, and other years, but,
And if we can figure out a way to not violate the Open Meetings Act, I think it would be great for us to show up as a team.
Yeah.
To show our support on any initiatives that you guys are focusing on. If you want us to testify, or if there's other
Yeah.
bills that that we come across that we want to testify either as a group, or maybe that's not allowed, maybe only one or two of us can
Yeah.
show up to share that feedback, probably.
It certainly would be something that we should do, and I have been invited to go to it, so I'll let, we'll work out a schedule to say, when do you want to present on Narragansett? So I
Excellent.
think we should do that.
And I think, I think we probably answered most of the final questions all in that one dialogue, but are there any additional committees, commissions, grants that you think that we could be applying for? Anything that we haven't covered? It's open-ended.
A lot of times when I get something from DEM, or mostly it's DEM, I just pass it along. And he always, and Mr. Tierney usually already has it, so.
Excellent.
And the only other thing that I would flag is just that Narragansett did complete the municipal resilience plan with the infrastructure bank, and that was the requirement to be able to access any funds that are available through the infrastructure bank for different types of community resiliency projects, or other types of infrastructure projects that might need to be done. They kind of have different pots of money for different things, but I would really encourage, and I know all that information comes to the town manager as well, but when people are flagging different projects that need to be done in town and things like that, I would always just look to see if there's a potential grant opportunity through them, and think about that. And certainly that's the type of thing that if there are letters of support needed, so whether you're applying for something directly from our federal delegation or at the state level, we can always put in letters in support too. So we're happy to support those things in that way as well.
Excellent. Does anyone else have any other questions? Anyone down here? Okay. Well, really want to say thank you so much, Senator, Representative, for attending our joint session this evening, and we'll be happy to pass along any follow-up questions that we might have, if that's all right, if we just reach out to you directly.
Absolutely.
As well as sharing them with Representative Teresa Tanzi as well. So really appreciate your time, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you very